Billionaire's Betrayal revealed pregnant wife posts shocking photos from bedroom with his mistress. Sunlight poured through the glass walls of the Markley estate like liquid gold, warm and beautiful, yet completely incapable of touching the coldness that had settled inside Seraphina Vale's heart. That morning she stood barefoot on the marble floor, one hand resting over the small curve of her pregnant belly, the other shaking violently around the phone she held. The images on the screen felt unreal, like someone else's nightmare. But they were hers. Her husband, Oric Marklace, celebrated billionaire, philanthropist, and the man she once believed was incapable of cruelty, lay tangled in silk sheets with his assistant, the shadows of their infidelity captured in photos that were never meant to be seen. And they were taken in the very bedroom Seraphina had decorated with hopes of raising a family. The betrayal wasn't just a wound, it was an earthquake, splitting her world in half before she even had time to breathe. If you believe in kindness, forgiveness, or second chances, remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Soul of Light. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. For a long moment, Seraphina didn't move. Morning birds chirped beyond the balcony, as if celebrating a day she no longer had the strength to face. Her chest tightened, and her breaths came shallow, but she forced herself to stay upright. The baby depended on her strength now. She slid the phone onto the desk and leaned against its edge, trying to make sense of the 1,000 pieces of pain swirling in her mind. She had given Oric everything: loyalty, love, quiet sacrifices, and the child she carried now. And in return, he had given his promises to another woman. Her thoughts drifted back to 3 years earlier, when Oric was a whirlwind of ambition and confidence sweeping into her life. Back then, she believed he saw her heart, not just her presence. They built a relationship in rapid, passionate strokes, late night conversations, wild dreams, glittering charity events. And though Seraphina often felt overshadowed by the glitter of his world, she believed they were building something real. But slowly, Oric became an echo in his own home. Meetings bled into late night travel. Calls came with excuses. He kissed her forehead more often than her lips. Every attempt she made to reconnect dissolved into silence or rushed promises of later. But later never came. Now, staring at those photos, Seraphina realized why. The truth tasted bitter, but it also awakened something inside her, a spark of resolve, a whisper urging her not to collapse. She pressed a hand to her belly and whispered, "I'm here. I'm still here." It was in that fragile moment she knew exactly what she had to do. She needed to reclaim her voice before she drowned in Oric's lies. The decision wasn't impulsive. It grew slowly, like a flame catching on a dry leaf. She took the phone, selected the photos, and posted them on her personal account with a calmness that surprised even herself. Her caption was quiet, almost gentle. Truth should never hide in shadows, even when it hurts. And then she turned the phone off. She didn't need to watch the explosion that would follow. It wasn't vengeance she sought, it was release. The estate grew eerily silent, as if the walls themselves were waiting for the storm. She spent the rest of the morning in the garden behind the house, where sunlight warmed her shoulders and the air smelled of blooming jasmine. She breathed deeply, letting the calm settle her nerves. This garden had always been her sanctuary, a place she nurtured with the same love she wished she received. She closed her eyes, letting the wind brush her hair, imagining a life where she didn't have to shrink herself to fit inside someone else's success. But peace was short-lived. By noon, the estate gates buzzed with chaos. Dozens of cars, reporters shouting questions, drones buzzing like insects, and among them was Oric's silver car, slipping past the crowd and rushing toward her like a plea wrapped in desperation. She didn't move. She wasn't afraid anymore. When he stepped out, looking disheveled and pale, his eyes searched her face with a mixture of panic and regret. "Seri, let's talk, please." His voice cracked in a way she had never heard before. But Seraphina merely looked at him, her expression calm and heartbreakingly distant. She realized in that moment that what hurt wasn't only what he did, but that she had slowly vanished from his priorities long before the betrayal. The love she gave had been unconditional. The love she received had been convenient. Auric followed her inside, talking in rushed explanations, claims of it being a moment of weakness, misunderstood, not what it looked like. But the images burned in her memory, and she had no energy to swallow lies disguised as apologies. She stopped in the hallway and placed a hand on the railing for support. "Auric," she said softly, "I'm carrying your child. I deserved your honesty, and my child deserved a father who cared enough not to destroy the one person holding this family together." The words broke something in Auric. His eyes glassed with tears, his shoulders sagging under the weight of her truth. For the first time she saw the man behind the empire, flawed, afraid, and deeply aware of what he was losing. But regret came too late. In the following days, Seraphina left the estate, not dramatically, not angrily, but quietly. She chose a small apartment overlooking the river, where morning light reflected on the water like a promise of new beginnings. She spent her days preparing for motherhood, attending gentle prenatal classes, and walking along the riverbank to clear her mind. At night, she wrote letters to her unborn child, letters full of hope, strength, and dreams of a peaceful future. She refused to let pain define the life growing inside her. Auric tried to reach her many times, dozens of messages, flowers, gifts, apologies written in long, desperate paragraphs, but Seraphina did not respond, not because she hated him, but because she finally understood that healing sometimes requires distance, and love, real love, cannot survive without trust. Days turned into weeks, and slowly something inside her shifted. She found joy in simple moments, feeling her baby kick for the first time, watching sunlight dance on the river, baking bread on quiet afternoons. She met kind strangers in her new neighborhood, Mrs. Halden, the elderly woman with the herb garden, and Jonas, the cafe owner who always added extra cocoa to her drinks without charging her. These small acts of kindness stitched her heart back together. And then one morning, as she stood on her balcony watching swans glide across the water, she realized she no longer woke up thinking about the betrayal. She thought about the future, about motherhood, about rediscovering herself. Auric eventually requested a final meeting, respectful, gentle, and free of pressure. Seraphina agreed, not for him, but for herself. They met in a serene botanical garden filled with soft daylight and slow, moving visitors. Auric approached her with a hesitant sadness in his eyes. He apologized, not with excuses this time, but with sincerity that trembled in his voice. He confessed how his ego had blinded him, how he mistook admiration for affection, and how he shattered the one person who gave him unconditional love. Seraphina listened quietly, her hands resting protectively over her belly. She forgave him, not because he deserved forgiveness, but because she needed peace. Forgiveness did not mean reunion. It meant letting go of the chains that tied her to pain. Auric promised to be present for the child, to support them both, to rebuild trust at her pace, and Seraphina believed him, not as a husband, but as a man learning to be better for his child. Their paths diverged gently after that conversation, not with bitterness, but with acceptance. Seraphina walked away feeling lighter than she had in months. She had reclaimed her story, her dignity, and her strength. On the day she finally went into labor, sunlight filled her apartment once again, bright, warm, and full of life. Surrounded by a small medical team and genuine kindness, she brought a daughter into the world. She named her Leora, meaning light. And as she held her tiny newborn against her chest, Seraphina realized something profound. Betrayal had broken her, yes, but it had also pushed her toward a journey she might never have taken otherwise, a journey toward herself. Her life was no longer defined by Oryx's actions. It was defined by her resilience, her courage, and the quiet, unstoppable strength of a woman choosing her own dawn. If this story touched your heart, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Soul of Light. Your support brings more healing stories to life. Special request: comment a heart emoji if you believe brighter days always follow dark nights. And with Leora sleeping peacefully in her arms as daylight shimmered through the curtains, Seraphina Vale finally stepped into her new beginning, one filled with hope, healing, and light that no betrayal could ever dim.